This is Mac OS Ken.
iPhone keeps making switchers, problems waking for some Mac Pros, and Silo is getting a second season. It is Thursday, the 15th of June, 2023. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. Use code MacOSKen50 at factormeals.com/MacOSKen50 for 50% off your first box. This show is also sponsored by SimpliSafe, the right way to protect your home. When you hear SimpliSafe, you may think about stopping burglars, but there are other hazards around the house. Flooding, smoke, carbon monoxide. SimpliSafe can look out for all of it. SimpliSafe's got a new smoke and CO detector to slot right in with their comprehensive suite of security cameras, sensors, and other hazard detectors for whole home monitoring. All of it as easy to set up as my system. I had my keypad, sensors, and base station up and running in well under an hour. Now at the other end, SimpliSafe's 24/7 professional monitoring service has trained agents ready to respond in an emergency. They send police, firefighters, or EMTs as soon as they are needed, even if you're away or can't be reached. You get that monitoring service for under $1 a day. See how SimpliSafe can help protect your home. Right now, get 20% off your new system when you sign up for interactive monitoring. Visit simplisafe.com/MacOSKen. SIMPLI. That's simplisafe.com/MacOSKen. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Numbers on smartphone switchers from boutique researcher Consumer Intelligence Research Partners, or CIRP. The numbers are mildly interesting, I guess. 9to5Mac writes up the data in a sort of convoluted way. Basically, and this is going to shock you, Apple is better at creating switchers than Google is. According to the report, over the last 12 months, 14% of iPhone buyers in the U.S. were switching from Android. Over the same time period, 4% of Android buyers were switching from iPhone. For user retention, 94% of existing iPhone users chose iPhone again for their next phone. Surprisingly strong. At least surprising to me, 91% of Android owners did or do the same for Android, though that slightly lower percentage feeds into the higher rate of users switching to iPhone by 9to5Mac's reckoning. Okay, I said the numbers were mildly interesting, though in retrospect I may have been wrong about that. What the study doesn't say is a bit more interesting, though. 9to5Mac says the data shows how much stronger Apple is at pulling Android users to iPhone than Google is at getting iPhone users to jump to Android. But that doesn't feel quite right. I remember back in 2008 discussing with a friend of mine how the smartphone race was likely to go. We knew then that Google was getting into the game with an operating system it would run on a number of smartphones made by a number of companies. My friend argued that Google would win in terms of numbers, a point I had to concede. But I argued that Apple would be a bigger winner because, while each company running the Google operating system would be promoting their individual phones, Apple could focus its incredible messaging power on just one. 15 years later, that is still the case. Anyway, more people switch from Android to iPhone. Color yourself shocked. It may be a short-lived victory, but it's a victory nonetheless for Apple. Market researcher Canalys says for the first quarter of 2023, the Cupertino company overtook Dell in personal computer sales in Western Europe. Once again, this is Apple doing well in an underperforming segment. For the quarter, laptops were down an estimated 37% in Western Europe, while desktops were down 35%. While the news does sound good for Apple, it's not so much that Apple did well, just didn't do as poorly as everybody else. Western Europe Mac sales were only down about 19% in the first quarter, according to Canalys. That was good enough to muscle into third, shoving Dell into fourth in terms of shipments. By the Canalys count, shipments for each of the other PC makers in the top 5 fell 32% or more. Speaking of Macs, Apple's biggest Mac on campus is having some drive trouble out of the gate. A piece from Mac Rumors has Apple posting a support doc Wednesday warning about SATA drive issues with the 2023 Mac Pro. While the Mac Pro is configured with SSD storage, the Mac Rumors piece says the machine has SATA ports for connecting internal hard drives, and some can disconnect due to a bug. The technical kind, not the creepy crawly. The piece has Apple indicating that certain SATA hard drives might unexpectedly disconnect from the 2023 Mac Pro after the computer wakes from sleep. Apple said it is aware of this issue and will fix it in a future macOS update. But I pretend to hear you say, "My Mac Pro is sleepy now." Well, if I were you, I would pour coffee down its throat, metaphorically speaking. Mac Rumors does suggest that 2023 Mac Pro owners with SATA drives installed not let their machines go Betty by. As a temporary workaround, the piece says users can prevent their Mac Pro from automatically going to sleep by opening the System Settings app, clicking on Displays, then Advanced, and turning on Prevent Automatic Sleeping when the display is off. Best Buy has expanded its financing plan for Apple Gear. A report from Mac Rumors says iPad Pro and Apple Watch Ultra have been added to the chain's Upgrade Plus program. Launched in partnership with Apple in late 2022, the report says the program provides monthly financing via Citizens Bank for select Apple products purchased from Best Buy in the U.S., similar to Apple's iPhone upgrade program. APRs range from 0 to 29.99% based on creditworthiness, according to the program's fine print. The top-of-the-line tablet and top-of-the-line Apple Watch join a raft of other Apple gear on offer. That includes the latest models of the MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, iMac, Mac Studio, and Mac Mini. Yes, even the 15-inch MacBook Air that just hit the market this week. At the end of the 3-year term, users can keep paying and upgrade to a new device, pay off the remaining balance and keep the old device, or return the device, shun all technology, and go live in a cave as our great-great-greats did. Or you could just return the device. The processor architecture firm ARM is planning to go public and may have Apple as an anchor investor. That is the word in a piece from Apple MOSK. Citing a Reuters report, the piece says the SoftBank subsidiary has been talking with 10 companies about such investment. Listed among them are Samsung, TSMC, Intel, Microsoft, and Apple. Apple MOSK says the investment would make sense for Apple and TSMC, given the extent to which the two companies make use of ARM reference designs in iPhones, iPads, Macs, and everything else. Of course, that's pretty much true for everyone else, at least every big player in tech at this point. It's honestly hard to see why Apple wouldn't want a piece of this action, unless it's worried about those other players. The piece says the deals being discussed don't give the companies any board-level presence. Nothing is decided according to the report, which goes on to say that the IPO won't take place until August at the earliest. Surprising no one, none of the companies thought to be involved offered comment for the Reuters report. More news in a moment, but first a word from Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit and sponsor of today's show. I've told you about some of the great meals I've had from Factor, like the ranch-baked chicken with cheesy broccoli rice and roasted mushrooms, and the broccoli cheddar ground beef. Both were great, and both were super quick. I do 10 minutes in the oven, but 2 minutes in the microwave would do it too. Well, Factor has new options for you to try. Surf and Turf and Surf and Surf, with great-sounding meals like roasted garlic filet mignon and shrimp, or Cajun spice shrimp and salmon. You can feel good about the seafood, since the seafood in Factor meals is sustainably sourced. And did I mention how good everything I've had from Factor tastes? Try 'em and see. Head to factormeals.com/macOSKen50 and use code macOSKen50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code macOSKen50 at factormeals.com/macOSKen50 to get 50% off your first box. Taste what's made Factor America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. Get 50% off your first box with code macOSKen50 at factormeals.com/macOSKen50. If you're impatient for the next Apple Watch activity challenge, don't get bent out of shape. Save that for the next Apple Watch activity challenge. iDownload blog says Apple has set the next challenge for Wednesday, the 21st of June, the International Day of Yoga. Not a huge time commitment, this one. The piece says users can get the virtual medallion and animated stickers by completing a yoga workout 10 minutes or more in duration. As usual, users can use Apple's app or others. iDownload blog says the pre-installed workout app features yoga tracking for all types of yoga sessions, but you can also use any third-party app to log your yoga sessions, as long as it saves data into the system's health database. The dystopian sci-fi epic Silo is coming back for a second season. Apple TV Plus issued an effusive press release saying so on Wednesday. If you haven't watched it, the company says Silo is the story of the last 10,000 people on Earth, their mile-deep home protecting them from the toxic and deadly world outside. However, no one knows when or why the silo was built, and any who try to find out face fatal consequences. Based on Hugh Howey's New York Times best-selling Wool trilogy, Apple says the show has driven growing viewership week to week since its early May premiere. It's also NAB certified fresh status on Rotten Tomatoes, scoring an identical 87 with both critics and audiences. Driving home the growing viewership line, Matt Chernis, head of programming for Apple TV Plus, was quoted in the release saying, "As audiences around the world have become gripped by the mysteries and conspiracies buried within this fascinating subterranean world, viewership only continues to climb, and we are so excited for more secrets of the silo to be revealed in Season 2. Season 1 consists of 10 episodes, the 8th of which drops tomorrow, Friday, the 16th of June. No word on when the second season will hit the stream. Of course, there's a writer's strike happening now and an actor's strike out there as a distinct possibility, so it could be a few minutes. And finally today, I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've talked about a Kickstarter project on this show. But I think this one will be of particular interest to a lot of you, and besides, seems really low risk. The guy's done the same thing at least a couple of times before. According to a piece from 9 to 5 Mac, Relay FM co-founder Stephen Hackett is putting together a 2024 Apple history calendar. Indications in the piece are that he's done this for the past 2 years in a row, noting historical dates for Apple hardware and Apple software. Now he is adding 2 more legs of the Apple story. For the 2024 calendar, he's noting significant dates in the year for Apple retail and Apple services. According to Hackett, these dates cover everything from Apple's earliest ideas about the internet to the latest in its growing collection of services, complete with key dates in the history of the Apple stores as well. Each month highlights a bunch of these important dates, according to Hackett, along with photographs of items in his Apple collection. As for odds of completion, Hackett says this is the 3rd wall calendar project I've done in 3 years, so I have a pretty good idea of what's needed in terms of printing, packing, and shipping. Still, there are always risks, he continues. These primarily include delays in production and shipping. I'm working with a local printer and will be doing the fulfillment myself. I am confident these will arrive in plenty of time for the new year. With a few levels of support from which to choose, you can find out more about the project at Kickstarter.com. Searching there for Apple Wall Calendar should take you straight to it. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by SimpliSafe. Get 20% off your new system when you sign up for interactive monitoring at simplysafe.com/macOSKen. This show is also sponsored by Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. Use code macOSKen50 at factormeals.com/macOSKen50 for 50% off your first box. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.